Okay, this is a brief summary of why Felipe Massa's court case about Crashgate 2008 is going to fail. Okay, I'm only going to supply a brief amount of information because there's so much more that I need to go into. But as a summary, and the reason I'm doing this video like this, my last video it's only had about 1,000 views. And this is what happens with videos anyway. From within about the first minute, you've had half of your audience drop off. So despite it saying, say, 1,200 views, 600 of them will be lost within the first minute. And then as the video goes on, the actual number of people still viewing drops right off. And in that video, which was this one, Massa verdict, there is no case, but the FIA and Ecclestone are still liable for millions in compensation, which they are. The details of that was in the latter half of the video that many people will not have seen. So this is the key points from that. Massa himself did not suffer any loss. Okay, what took place in that race was a crash. The way the crash was dealt with was in accordance with the FIA rules and regulations. They did not deviate from that. They dealt with a safety incident using the safety car. All the teams responded knowing that they were the protocols that were going to be enacted. They were enacted and the teams responded accordingly. Therefore, sporting fairness within that competition was not compromised. The problem was that the team made a mistake. Okay, that is not the governing body's fault. So they are not negligent when it comes to that race result. Where their negligence happens is the fact that they then became aware at the final race of the season, the Brazilian Grand Prix. And I've got the wrong tab there, this one here. You'll notice from this season-long overview, the Singapore Grand Prix took place and there was still the Japanese, the Chinese and the Brazilian Grand Prix to come that season. You also might notice that down here at the first race of the season, Rubens Barrichello is noted as being disqualified from that race. Okay, somebody cheated. So what did they do? They disqualified the cheat. Okay, I think he exited the pits under reds, but he's still cheating. He did something that's against the rules. He cheated, so they disqualified him. They did not cancel the race. Somebody's cheated. We've got to cancel that race out of the championship. No, that's not what you do. A really, really good point made by somebody in the comments section of that video was that you do not retrospectively remove a race from the calendar because every race matters, as already stated. But the key thing here is you leave that race knowing the points that have been allocated, and then you approach the next race and the next one and the next one accordingly. Take take the 2021 season, for example. Lewis Hamilton knew that with 4 races of the season to go, which were Brazil, Saudi, Qatar and Abu Dhabi, Lewis Hamilton, assuming Max Verstappen finished second in each of those races, Lewis Hamilton would have had to have won every single race in order to win the championship. So therefore, he had to approach each of those 4 races in that manner. So, irrespective of these results, knowing where you sit in the championship, what the standings are after Singapore, after the points have been allocated, relative to those around that you are competing with in the championship, you cannot retrospectively go back and go, oh, now we're cancelling that one out of the order, because these results here, the manner in which these teams and these drivers approach them events, knowing what it is they needed to do to achieve the championship, okay, and that can be in certain instances going, okay, all we need to win the championship mathematically between now and the end of the season is we need to get 12 more points and we've won, for example. They might not be desperate to win the races. They might be saying it's okay. We don't mind. We don't need to risk challenging for that position because we're in a position where we're picking up sufficient points. That's good enough. So you can't go skewing these things because how these races for the remainder of the season would have been differently approached. That was an interesting point that I didn't even pick up on in that regard. But the thing is this, the FIA carried out the rules and regulations at that particular event. Massa was compromised by his team's mistake, and then subsequent to that, his driving, which meant that he finished in 13th position. All that the FIA should have done when they became aware of the situation was to disqualify Alonso and then amend the results of that race and the points allocation accordingly. They didn't. They covered it up. And here is the problem. Okay? They covered it up because they wanted to protect the image and therefore the financial status of their sport. Okay? Their show. Bernie Ecclestone, who is the guy that owned the commercial rights, tried to protect his asset by covering up a fraud. And that is exactly what has gone on. He harboured a criminal, and that is Flavio Briatore, okay, by not exposing him, purposely trying to cover it up to protect his financial asset. That is the act of a criminal. So, in covering it up, they knew at this Brazilian Grand Prix, they were made aware that that crash was done on purpose, and hence Alonso should have been disqualified from that, and the Renault team should have been disqualified from the entire season because of cheating, absolute gross misconduct, undermining the integrity of the entire competition. They did nothing. They tried to cover it up. As a result of them doing nothing and covering it up, Renault finished 4th in that Constructors' Championship when they should have been disqualified. Disqualifying Renault removes the prize money that they received. And let's use this as an example. Let's take the example, because in the previous video I did get a Google tab up saying that the overall prize pot for the season was about $1.2 billion. I don't know the actual breakdown, so let's just estimate that in 4th position Renault may have received $70 million for finishing 4th, and do the breakdown. Toyota 60, Toro Rosso Ferrari 50, Red Bull 40, Williams 30, Honda 20, and Force India £10 million, for example. Renault shouldn't be there. Renault should be disqualified. So each of these teams, Toyota, Toro Rosso, Red Bull, Williams, Honda and Force India, all climb a place in that table. Each of them teams gets an additional £10 million in prize money. Each of the employees of those teams, who may well be on a contract whereby they get an annual bonus that depends on the finishing position of their team in that championship, and therefore the amount of money their team earns is linked to the amount of bonus paid to those employees. Each of those employees may well have suffered financial loss as a result of the FIA and Bernie Ecclestone failing to act appropriately and disqualify Renault. The money saved from that, which was a team that would have got nothing, should have then been redistributed between all of the teams. So if it was the fact that all of these teams shunted up, so then what's left behind is a slot that Force India, the 10 million that Force India should have got, that actually they got elevated to the £20 million slot, would have left a 10 million for this 10th place team that no longer existed. Could some of that been distributed to the Super Aguri Honda team if they exited the sport owing money to creditors, paying off companies that may have gone bankrupt because Super Aguri Honda owed them money? This is people's livelihoods. This is people's lives. There was still £10 million that then could have got distributed between 9 teams if there was no money owing, if Honda had settled the debts. That's an extra £1 million per team. They didn't receive that. And in terms of the Drivers' Championship, I'm not suggesting you disqualify Alonso from the entire season. If that was the only race that he was cheating at and wasn't aware, which is the claim, then maybe just disqualify him from that one race. Although a full investigation does need to take place to understand his true involvement and true knowledge of the situation. And if he was knowledgeable and still took the win, well, he should be erased from the entire season. But even if you just disqualified him from the Singapore Grand Prix, this 61 points and 5th in the championship, well, that becomes 51 points, which drops him down here below Heikki Kovalainen. Nick Heidfeld and Heikki Kovalainen now go ahead of him in that Drivers' Championship, becoming 5th and 6th respectively. That affects their career records. That can affect their contract with their team, any bonus that they earned that season from their team. That can affect their future contract negotiations. That can affect the future employment opportunities and future contracts, and it can affect their deals that they can get through the sponsorship deals, for personal sponsorship deals, based on the perceived success of these athletes as to where their finishing position was in the title. They suffered financial loss, or are likely to have suffered financial loss. Now, when you're doing litigation, you have, in order to get compensated for something, you have to demonstrate that you've lost. Heidfeld, Kovalainen are likely to have lost out due to Alonso not being disqualified by the FIA. Ecclestone clearly had a role within that. And likewise, each of these 6 teams and all of the employees of those teams, perhaps 1,000 employees per team, 6,000 men and women, who all would have had their annual bonuses impacted negatively by the fact that this cheating team was not disqualified, because the sport sought to cover it up, to protect the image of the sport and to protect Bernie Ecclestone's billions. That is what the crux of the matter is. No media is going to relay that to you this way, and this corrupt lawyer is taking this case to gas Felipe Massa up. Felipe Massa didn't suffer any loss. He finished 2nd in the championship on merit. He was in that race, and that race, his team made an error. It happens. A slow pit stop, for example. Yes, it happens. So, you didn't lose anything, Felipe. That race was conducted in accordance with the rules and regulations of the sport. Your team messed up. You only got 13th position in that race, and that wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. So, whoever is trying to convince you that you should be recognised as being the real champion that year, this man's arguing that case. That is a corrupt argument. But lawyers are often corrupt. They will take on anybody's argument as long as somebody's paying them. They don't care about the difference between right and wrong in the context of a given situation. They have no integrity. They don't care about justice. They care about money. And then will try and gaslight the world with, oh, well, the law, or legally it could be this, legally it could be that, and it's bullshit. And I'm going to expose this one more in greater detail, because there is far more to it than this, and you will see what is actually going to happen here. So make sure you stay tuned for when I do a video about that. Now, just one further thing to add before I wrap this one up. Singapore also produced something else a few years later, 2015. A safety car period was caused on lap 37 by a man walking on the track. So what have we got here? Something artificial that we don't see in racing. So you see, in motor racing, what we do see is crashes, and they get dealt with by deploying the safety car. Here, what do we have? We had somebody intruding onto the track. Now, that could happen anywhere. Oh, your favourite driver isn't winning, so you run onto the track to get the race stopped. And then what do we do? Because if something happened that is inorganic, okay, what should we do now? Oh, do we cancel the race because somebody has disrupted it by running onto the track? Do we do that? Or no, all we do is we go through the protocols that are already in place that the FIA enact. And that is, oh, there's a safety concern here. What do? We deploy the safety car. What do the teams do now? The teams are aware of this procedure. You might use this procedure to get a cheap pit stop. Okay? Oh, okay, we'll go into the pits, we'll do a tyre change. Oh, shit! One of the tyres fell off the car, one of the wheels fell off the car because the mechanic didn't do it up properly. And that means your race is now ruined. Oh, we'll have to cancel that race because somebody walked out onto the track. No, everybody else carried on racing, didn't they? Everybody else was able to compete in that race in exactly the same way. Is it this one? You see, although Alonso cheated, Rosberg, Hamilton, Glock, Vettel, Heidfeld, Coulthard, Nakajima, Button, Kovalainen, Kubica, they all carried on racing in exactly the same way. They didn't have a problem in the pits, did they? Because this is Formula One racing. The FIA adhered to the protocols, the teams knew what those protocols were, and everybody responded accordingly. Your difference with Abu Dhabi is your governing body broke the rules of the sport to set it up for Max Verstappen. That's where the real case is, but what we've got here is a gaslighting barrister trying to argue something. And again, I'll come into this with a different video. Like I said, I'm keeping this one short. Thank you for your time. I hope that has summarised things in a quick manner to demonstrate that Massa has no case, and if the judge does anything but throw this case out, it demonstrates the corruption that exists in the British justice system. And it does, because I can categorically prove that there are 6 UK judges. 2 of them are grossly negligent and 4 of them are criminally corrupt. And I've got the evidence. Anyway, thank you for your time.